Times.
Well, there's not a lot I can do, Pen. This is his flat.
A transmogrifier in the wrong hands can be a dangerous weapon, as the crew of Red Dwarf 4 discover on BBC2 shortly.
You are the detectives. Go and detect.
Two cops who love the Force.
You're gonna what? Quit, leave, depart, vamos, Amsbury, retire.
And the Force loves them.
If I find you in the city, I'm going to have you arrested. If you step 1 foot in the station house, I'm going to have you shot.
But at least the work is interesting. Running Scared, Friday at 9:40 on 1.
Denmark, last-minute challenges for the European Football Championship. England, in search of lasting glory. Live coverage on BBC1 this Thursday at 7.
Well, as thousands of football fans converge on Sweden, Sue Cook and Nick Ross look behind the scenes of crowd control.
Shrouded in secrecy and mythology, the illegals are the elite of Russia's spies. Directorate S gave illegals the identity of real persons, born in the West, but believed to be dead.
What these illegals were able to achieve, I've never quite understood.
The KGB officers filmed themselves, blending unnoticed as international tourists.
The term illegal didn't mean anything to me.
The Yorkows transformed themselves from Russians into Germans and then into Brazilians.
The Illegals, tomorrow, 9:30 on 1.
On BBC2 shortly, Sam Beckett makes a quantum leap back to 1958.
1 large pina colada, sir.
Well, that'll do for starters.
A reversal of fortune. Boys from the Bush in half an hour.
Before that, on BBC1, the 9 o'clock news with Martin Lewis.
BT is ordered to cut its charges. Businesses could see their phone bills reduced by around 10%. BT says the proposals are harsher than expected, but many domestic users will still end up paying more. Libya tries to come in from the cold by giving Britain details of its contacts with the IRA. And the Queen tells the French that Britain is a committed and an energetic partner in the European community. Good evening. BT has been ordered to cut its telephone charges next year. The industry watchdog, Oftel, said the command was not negotiable, and if BT didn't agree, the issue would be referred to the Monopolies and Mergers Commission. Oftel wants average price rises to be pegged to 7.5% below the rate of inflation. Under BT's existing pricing policy, businesses and heavy private users would benefit most, with cuts of around 9% below inflation. But the average residential user, with a bill of around £46 a quarter, would pay more, even though Oftel's chairman, Sir Brian Carlsberg, said he particularly wanted them to pay less.
The ruling by telecom regulators doesn't threaten the status of BT as Britain's most profitable company. It's expected to shave less than 2% from its colossal profits. Today, the man employed to make sure those profits aren't earned at the expense of domestic consumers announced he'd tightened the regulation of a market where there's no effective competition.
Regulation has really to take the place of competition and put the kind of tough test on BT in the interests of residential customers that competition otherwise might.
But whatever Oftel's good intentions, domestic phone bills will keep on rising despite today's reforms. That's because, once again, the principal advantages will go to the business customer. They'll see charges changed by inflation minus 9%, a real cut. The best domestic users can hope for is an average of 3% less than the current rate of inflation. And because prices are generally rising at above 4%, that actually means an increase of £2 a year for the average user.
Many residential subscribers will not actually see their bills cut as from 1 year to the next. Meanwhile, a number of residential users, particularly people who make a lot of local phone calls, may actually find their bills going up quite a lot.
There's some good news for consumers in today's reforms. Maximum connection charges are being reduced by more than £50. Customers will be able to pay for telephone connections by instalment, and charges for the smallest users will fall. But line rentals will be allowed to rise by inflation plus 2%, and the price of most domestic calls will also be allowed to go up.
I believe that the consumer is getting a raw deal if these changes go ahead in this way. There should be price cuts now, and the rental charges should be falling.
BT has about a fortnight to respond to Oftel's recommendations, but they're not being given much chance to complain. The regulator has warned that if BT turns down his proposals, he'll refer the company to the Monopolies and Mergers Commission.
Libya has given Britain details of the former links between Colonel Gaddafi's regime and the IRA at a 2-hour meeting in Geneva. The talks were arranged after the United Nations imposed sanctions against Libya 2 months ago for refusing to hand over 2 men suspected of carrying out the Lockerbie bombing.
The Libyans, represented by their ambassador in Tunisia, Abdul Ati al-Obeidi, had been asked by Britain to supply answers to several questions about their links with the IRA and supplies of arms and explosives. The UN, who hosted the meeting, had also called on Libya to contribute to the elimination of international terrorism. The Libyan ambassador emerged after 2 hours.
What was the atmosphere?
Very friendly. Did you give a document?
Did you hand over any documents?
We exchange information.
But verbal information, oral? Only verbal.
Verbal.
Neither the Libyan diplomat nor the British chargé d'affaires in Geneva, Edward Chaplin, would go into specifics, whether Lockerbie had been discussed, for example. Mr. Chaplin merely said that he'd received information and would be sending it to London, where it would be studied. British security sources are not expecting major revelations. They came 5 years ago with the interception of the freighter Exund off the French coast. Ground-to-air missiles, 2 tons of Semtex, thousands of guns and rounds of ammunition were seized. But by then, the IRA's Libyan connection had already supplied them with enough material to step up a campaign of terrorism in Northern Ireland, England and continental Europe. Some of it has been recovered. The Irish police found a huge cache of weapons in County Cork last month, but most is still thought to be at the terrorists' disposal. Every day, security forces on both sides of the Irish Sea are having to deal with the consequences of Colonel Gaddafi's generosity to the IRA.
The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Norman Lamont, has said he's immensely encouraged by talks about the future of the European Community's budget. At today's meeting in Luxembourg, it's understood that a majority of European finance ministers said they were against any increase in community spending. It's being seen as a blow for the Commission President Jacques Delors, who wants to increase the community's budget by 30% over the next 5 years.
Luxembourg is among the most pro-federalist of all the community countries, but it's here that signs are emerging that the Danish no vote is having repercussions. The European Commission President arrived here to argue the case for a 30% increase in the EC budget, Jacques Delors believing it's necessary to fulfill the community's enhanced role. But the Chancellor of the Exchequer came here determined to fight the rise, Norman Lamont saying it's more than people are prepared to pay. A majority of his colleagues supported him for the first time, no doubt worried that such a large budget rise would only fuel the EC's unpopularity.
We cannot allow expenditure at the European level to be miles above that which we would tolerate at home. If it can't be afforded at home, it simply can't be afforded through the European community.
At the meeting, the lessons from Denmark had obviously been learned. Germany's minister said his